There's a dark thread in American history that ties people like Danny Masterson, Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby Franke, and Tim Ballard all together. In fact, for hundreds of years, this powerful thread has been intertwining churches and states closer together rather than keeping them separate. The harsh reality is that every year, thousands of innocent lives are shattered from so much predatory behavior within churches. Evil is often swept under the rug and protected by a completely legal system that favors the perpetrators and allows them to continually evade accountability and remain completely unchecked. But enough is enough. Enough with the self-preservation of the church. Enough with prioritizing the church's reputation instead of the safety of its members. Enough with victims being ignored, silenced, or paid off. So today, Jenni and I are digging into the systemic cover-ups and legal loopholes that enable these crimes to persist across every religion. But we want you to weigh in. Jump into the chat if you're joining us live, or start a conversation in the comments if you're joining us later. Exposing all these hidden crimes within cults and churches is long overdue. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, Jenni.
Hey.
Hey, girl.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too shabby.
Good. We mentioned this a minute ago, but I just have to point it out in case no one else notices. First of all, my shirt is matching your background, which I think is just, look at us go.
Oh,
our hair is the same.
Somewhere. There's my background. Oh, yeah. We did our little... On. Yeah.
Yeah. Are
this
we
was not
our
planned.
Own cult?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, probably.
Blink twice if you need help.
The cult of the anti-cult. Right. Is this the thing?
Right. That's what my Patriots calls the anti-cult club. And I'm like, oh,
that's right.
Hold on. What's going on here? Y'all don't let me do that. I don't think I'm charismatic enough to lead a cult, so we should be good.
Oh, shoot. I know. Me either. At all. I could not.
Look at all of our people already in the YouTube chat over here. You guys, I appreciate your patience as I toggle between Instagram and YouTube to read comments, but I appreciate everyone being here who's joining us today, and everybody from Jenni's crew, the ex-Scientologist community. So yeah, it's good to see everybody's name over here. Ooh, I see some of my Patreon members over here in the chat as well. So let me give a big shout out to these ladies over here. Y'all are just amazing and awesome and so supportive. And I could gush about you guys all day because y'all give me feelings. Okay. I don't have those often, no. But yeah, it's great to see y'all. Good to see y'all. So happy y'all are here. Jenni, catch everybody up with what's up with you. We've done a few lives and conversations on here before, but it's always a pleasure to connect with you. And this was actually your idea to do the topic today. So yeah, why don't you break it down?
So, yeah, I guess for people who don't know, originally I found Kendra because you know how YouTube is, it kind of populates things into your feed, you know, that possible interest. And some of her videos on the Hildebrandt issue and the Frankie Hildebrandt issue were going. And, you know, so I was like, let me listen to those. So I started listening to them. And then I saw another video. I don't remember what it was exactly. I was like, oh, I just felt like I needed to reach out to her because, you know, so just the way you talk is like way up my alley. So it was like, I reached out to her. Probably, and the really like sarcastic humor is like, it's my thing. I get mistaken a lot because I throw comments out. People are like, I'm like, it was a joke.
It'll be fun.
Not serious. So we actually did an interview together. Maybe I'll throw it into when I go back around. I'll throw it back into either the comments or back in my community tab. Yeah, and then we did another like cult versus cult kind of thing together. And I'm not gonna lie, some of the stuff she was reading had me so messed up in my head. I think I forgot what I was gonna finish saying because I was just like, I could not believe that stuff goes on and that book exists and that it was just disgusting.
To train up a child.
Yes, I cannot believe anyone even has it in them to do that to a kid. It's like, oh. Yeah. So anyways, Kendra does a lot of true crime stuff, a lot of cult stuff. And I thought, you know what? There is so much crime that occurs in churches and by church members who start throwing the religious thing around to kind of like tone it down. Or then you have the organizations, they're so worried about the reputation that they sit there and hide things and all, all that good stuff or
Oh,
terrible
yeah.
stuff. And I was like, you know what? We probably should talk about this. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, and it's something that I could talk about all day, just like you. So, but yeah,
mhm.
like anything related to children and the corporal punishment, like what I talked about on the interview and stuff, like how I was raised, it's always very difficult, and um it hits me hard too. People ask me a lot, like, well, how come you don't talk about your own story that much? And I'm like, you think I want to process that? I have to reprocess and re-traumatize myself all the time? No. But I probably will do a live soon talking about my own personal story again, because it's been a while and my channel's grown quite a bit. But it is, like you said, it's just emotionally and mentally exhausting to talk about some of that
Mhm.
stuff. And you don't even realize sometimes how triggering it is. To bring it back up. So I'm my bad, Jenny. I'm sorry that it had that effect on you, honestly.
No, no, I mean, with all fairness, I mean, like, yeah, that was your upbringing, and then you saw it happening with your brother, and then then you hear about how the IBLP tries to use that as like one
Mhm.
of their references, and that's a bigger organization. And then I heard about gosh, I can't believe I didn't take a note of it. Someone else mentioned that there's another kind of offshoot Christian offshoot that was also starting to adopt that book, and I was like,
Oh,
why?
really?
What is wrong with these
Yeah.
people? Yeah, I was like, I need to keep note of this, or maybe I don't, but
It's like I wanna keep note of it so I can inform people, but yeah, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot for sure.
it is. It's so crazy. And for all of y'all who on my side, if you haven't been to Kendra's channel in my community tab, I put it there. I linked it there so you can just grab that and jump over and see some of her like culty crime stuff. It's pretty awesome, actually.
Hey, thanks. Y'all, like, it's on screen, but go check out Jenny's channel as well. She does not just ex-Scientology. I put that up here because she is an ex-Scientologist. She was raised in the
Mhm.
religion, but she does a,
It's
YouTube
probably the
channel with
most
your
of my
cousin.
content. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yeah, sorry. I was gonna say you're not totally wrong. It is probably most of what I do, but yeah, we do talk to people from other cults
Yeah.
as well as like now atheists too. I'm looking at all ends of things.
Because your cousin is the atheist in this situation. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
well, should we dive into the topics at hand? What do you guys think?
Yeah, let's
Y'all
do
ready to get
it.
into it? Because there's a lot.
Yes.
There's a
Let's
lot.
do
And
it.
so, like I said in the intro, y'all drop, like, be in the comments and in the chat. I want to know what crimes within religions that you know of. Even if we aren't talking about it, it might spark something that we know or something that we want to know. So yeah, this is
Mhm.
just as much y'all's conversation as it is ours. So definitely communicate. We loved it. We love it. What should we start with, Jenny? What are you feeling?
I think you should start with the whole like Ruby Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt thing. Like recap on that a little bit because weren't they with the FLDS or
Yeah.
something like that?
So if you guys are familiar with Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt, I've talked about them so much. I want to throw up every time I see their names now. But at the same time, I will always take advantage of an opportunity to talk some shit about them because they're shitty people. And I think we should normalize talking shit about shitty people, specifically
Agreed.
parents towards their children or people in positions of power towards parishioners or whatever. I have no shame about that. Um, so yeah, so Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were part of the Mormon Church. Ruby Franke, of course, just a quick recap. She used to have a YouTube channel, like a defunct YouTube channel now with over 2 million subscribers. And she did it on like expert parenting all through like the Mormon lens with 6 kids. So it was a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. Fast forward, she ended up partnering with this lady, Jodi Hildebrandt, who was a counselor that basically the LDS funneled parishioners to her through the church. So she made bank from the church giving her clients. However, she was extremely abusive towards these clients. She would make up stuff about them. She would break HIPAA all the time. She even had her license suspended at one point for breaking HIPAA against a patient. She would separate families, lying, saying that all of these men had porn addictions when they actually didn't. But it was just her way of like getting the men out of the household so she could basically take over that position in the house with the wife. So there's been multiple occasions where she did that. The Frankie family is the most recent because, as most of you know, back in August of last year, Ruby Franke's youngest son ran away from Jodi Hildebrandt's house, went to a neighbor's house, had duct tape, wounds all over his body, was extremely emaciated. It was just a really bad ordeal. And so Ruby Franke, the mom of these kids, and Jodi Hildebrandt, her business partner, were arrested, charged, and pled guilty to 4 separate counts each of felony child abuse. And so now they're serving time for that. So, but all of that is stemming, and how that relates to religion and crime within religion is the church knew about this long before it came, before it went public. They knew about Jodi's years and years and years of abuse to other people way before the Frankies entered the picture. But they also would go to court in some of these previous court hearings before the Frankies and defend Jodi, be witness, like character witnesses for her, do everything they could to keep her in good standing with the government or with the law, the state laws, so she could keep practicing for the Mormon church. So they just kept sweeping it under the rug. Now, of course, now that it's become this huge news story, it has in the past year, then the church was like, oh, we don't want anything to do with her. She's not one of us. This is just a one-off thing, but it's not a one-off thing. Sweeping it under the rug is not a one-off thing with not just the Mormon community. I mean, any religious community, let's be honest. And so that's the problem with that for sure. And then outside of that, then another Mormon aspect would be like Tim Ballard, that whole situation with his thing that's blown up recently. I don't know. I feel like the past year, the Mormon church especially has just had like boom, 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 like all of these big scandals. Like, they've been going on for years. They're just coming to light.
Yeah. And I think what is I guess maybe what I think is a little bit interesting about that. So you had like, obviously the whole thing that you were just talking about was going on for, wasn't it several years before finally finally, the church is covering for her and all this is going on. And finally she gets busted like years later. I mean, but that's how long stuff is allowed to go on. If you look at the Catholic Church and all of the pedophilia that was going on, and it took years before it got busted. But now that gate kind of opened, they can bring in people go, oh my gosh, we can bring in other abuses. So like the Tim Ballard thing's happening, and he's got up to, I think 8 people now have come forward about his essaying them. Yeah. And like, I think it was 5. And then I think recently it's now bounced up to 8. I think 5 are actually charging him, but I think 8 people total have come forward. And he's got wild stuff. I mean, this is a guy, he's connected very highly in the organization. He's got like some of the top people kind of like vouching for him and giving him certain blessings and stuff like that. And then he's you heard the whole thing about him taking ketamine to get like messages. Like, I'm not sure that's the way you get messages.
I bet you're getting messages, but I don't know that they're of the holy nature per se.
I know, right? And then he gets these poor women who are working for him thinking he's doing this incredible job, which in some aspect it is. But then you have this other thing where he's like almost like trying to idolize himself a little bit, because he's getting these messages while he's on ketamine. And then, and then even his organization started like really noble, and then he got so Hollywoodized, and now he's like trying to like make it where he's got all these celebrities like going and helping, but they're really just showing up. Here's the thing that like blew my mind, right? And this I think I heard from the Nuanced Hoe. I know it's a funny name, but she's got a lot of facts and stuff going on there. But she was talking about how, in order to like, for the filming purposes and also for actually catching some of these people, instead of just catching them with the actual people that like are already enslaved by them, they're talking mothers of these like lower class countries into like putting their kid up for prostitution and stuff in order to nail the person, running it and or like recruiting for it or running it or whatever. So not only is it already occurring in real life, in real time, but then they're talking to other people. Well, we want to bust this guy, so it's for a good reason. So they talk the mother into agreeing to like prostitute their child in order to like bust these people. Like that's insane. Like, can you imagine traumatizing a child that way just to bust somebody when they already got? There's already kids like captive. Just bust them, like do what you say you do. Anyway, so between that and the essaying,
it's and then I think this is true. I didn't verify it before tonight, but I don't think like he ever actually saved any children in his OAR organization anyway. It was all a front and facade. The stuff that he had, like Tim Ballard had said that he had done through the organization weren't actually true. Like it was debunked or whatever. So he's just out here lying, and so he can take advantage of women, which what a piece of shit.
Oh, see, I hadn't heard that. I heard that I think I heard a different version of that where I heard that he wasn't like going and busting these rings that were like already have all these children like captive. He's talking people into letting their kid get captive and then busting the people when that happens. And and that's what I'm saying. Like, so he's like, for all the glamorization and for the purposes of getting tons of money for OUR or whatever, like you're going to go sacrifice another child when you already have like hundreds of children being trafficked. Like find your way in there for real. If that's what your purpose is, your stated purpose, and people are paying you thousands and thousands of dollars, then literally go figure that out or don't. And then stop trying to tell people you're some messiah, it's getting messages through your ketamine mind and then sexually abusing them. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you, buddy?
There's already enough traumatized people. We don't need to add to that for some weird backwards reason. I don't know.
Yeah. And then you got them like these Mormon elders, or I don't know their exact proper term, I think they're elders, but they higher ups, and they're backing him, and they're bringing him into their little like upper inner circle. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's like, really disgusting.
Even though this stuff is coming up, they haven't like said, okay, we don't want to have anything to do with this guy. They're not letting any ties between them go. Like they're still holding on. It's a bit like the Danny Masterson thing, which we can talk about in a minute, but
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I want to talk about them all like right now at the same time because it's just like, it's like this, it's a shit snowball, like going downhill, just picking up shitty people along the way. It's like, who do we start with? And yeah, shit snowball, TM. Y'all don't steal that.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I think it's worth pointing out maybe like what we're talking about here. We think because we're talking about certain key cases like Ruby and Jodi and Tim and Danny Masterson that were eventually held accountable, that maybe that's the standard, but it's not. Like that's really the exception because there's so much abuse happening constantly in every denomination, in every like I feel pretty comfortable saying for sure every religion, maybe not every church, but way too frequently. And then of course there's the whole, like you mentioned, the whole Catholic thing, the Southern Baptist Church thing that blew up a couple years ago. That was freaking crazy. I think I even saw a comment when we were talking about the To Train Up a Child book, and you said there was another religion that was picking up things. I think someone mentioned that was the Southern Baptist Church as well. So
yes, I think you're right.
There's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah.
And then Candace, look, there's a couple ladies in here just spitting bars in the chat here with like all of these facts and just going back and forth with some of this information. So I appreciate y'all.
I didn't realize that Boy Scout thing was connected to the LDS church. I hadn't realized that. You heard all about the Boy Scout issue when that blew up, like blue sky high. But
the LDS church is also the richest religious institution in the world too, billions of dollars. Yeah. So they just paid off, like their whole thing was trying to pay their way out of the Boy Scout crosshairs.
I mean, that's what the Catholic Church ended up having to do too, right? Didn't they just start paying everybody? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Here.
And same with Tim Ballard. I know, like when victims were coming forward, he like went to them privately and was like trying to offer them money off the record to basically buy their silence. I mean, it's just so common. If they can't, that's the thing, is if they can't, these groups and people can't manipulate or scare you into silence, then they'll try to buy your silence. But I think victims should be compensated financially for the pain and suffering, but also it is a lot more than just the money. This isn't people just seeking money. This is people seeking justice. But a lot of times with these narcissists and abusers, the only language they understand, and sometimes the only language that our government understands, is money.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking too about this thing where you have you have a couple of different situations where you have these churches who get their 501c3s, and then they like hide all that stuff because they don't want to lose that exemption. And so they'll sit there, if anything goes to court, they'll sit there and go, oh, I'm sorry, separation of church and state, First Amendment, can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the other people who try to just put themselves off as these religious do-gooders. So people go, oh, well, they're religious, so obviously they're not going to be involved in something like that, right. or they won't think to look down that path. Yeah. Like, oh, well, there's a very godly person, oh, look what they're doing. Oh, so great. Instead of going, oh, that doesn't really make sense, what you just said there. Like, that's a little weird. Let's pull that one a little bit further, So I think you get a lot of that stuff going on. And so these organizations get highly into defending these perverts and criminals because they're worried about themselves, and
100%.
Which is kind of backwards too. Because if you think about it, right, let's just say they were to go, we just found out these pervs are in our church and we're turning them over to the police, and they would actually come out looking a whole lot better. But for some reason, they got all twisted in their head where if they come forward, then it looks like they created a pervert or something. I don't know. It's some kind of weird twisted thing. I don't really understand what it is.
I think Deja Blue Bear here, I think she brings up a good point. She said more along the lines of the discussion question, churches protect the abusers because the abusers bring the money. Not the victims don't bring the money in. It's the abusers. And that's how they get into positions of power anyway, because they can influence and manipulate people. And then they can bring in the susceptible or the vulnerable people to provide financial, backing for their leadership. So it's just like a really vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, if when you think about the whole Danny Masterson thing, right? And I got a personal pet peeve with that because I met the guy when I was 16. I was a friend of his friends. And, he was a douche. I didn't like him at all. I didn't even want to talk to him.
Wait, did you say you met Danny Masterson?
Yeah. Yeah. They had a little circle of people.
When was this?
I was 16. And so I don't really want to say exactly when because it tells how old I am. And I'm old.
Did he look at you? I'll go hunt that motherfucker.
No, here's this thing where he kind of looks at you and looks you up and down a little
ew.
Yeah, he does that. Gross. And it's this combination of almost checking you out, but a little bit are you at my level? Are you good enough to be kind of around me? That's the vibe you get. And I was kind of ooh, we are definitely not the same kind of person. But we were there for someone else's birthday party. You know what I mean? So
I see.
It was Bonnie and Marissa Ribisi's birthday. They're twins or whatever. And so I was friends with their younger sister. And so, and then I was kind of she would want me to come hang out, here and there, but I was kind of I really can't. I'm just not my kind of people. I can't do it. So then there was an event that occurred later on, and I ran into him again. He was just like, "Oh, hey, you know." I was like, "No, dude, we are not friends. Like, let's not even say hi." And so I was surprised he remembered me because it was like a year or something later. And then, but so I didn't really have anything to do with him because I just didn't like him. But here he was. He became a famous actor, you know, on a sitcom at that time was super, super big. But, you know, me being in the C organization of Scientology, I wasn't allowed to watch TV, so I didn't have a clue. But I knew that he was famous. So, like you say, the whole thing about giving money, you know, because obviously he can, and his whole little posse, you know, or whatever. Anyways, and it looks good for the organization because it looks like famous people are part of it. Anyway, so then he's like raping these women, and he's like even confronted with it, and he's kind of like, yeah, I did that, but there's nothing wrong with that. You know, like he refused to see it that way, but he did admit he did exactly those things. And it was just insane. And they couldn't figure out how to like handle him. And so when it finally, like in the way it works in our, you know, in Scientology, you can't sue him unless you want to get what they call declared, which for like Jehovah's Witnesses would be like disfellowshipped, and other people would be excommunicated and whatever, right? You literally lose your friends, your family, possibly your job, if that's where you were. If you were going to school, you lose that. Like you could literally lose about everything you have. And so it's very scary. So these women were not going forward. And finally, one of them was like, I don't care. Like, I want justice. You guys won't fix him. And I've tried. And so she got declared, she lost her family. And then that, you know, prompted the other girl to come forward. And then the other one did. And then like several others came forward, but they weren't interested in going through the whole trial, you know, trauma and everything like that. I understand. Yeah, I understand. I couldn't do it. And then, but in the organization though, instead of going like, this is where I go, well, if they just turned him over and said, here's all the reports, everything he's confessed, like they would have come out looking like almost a little bit saintly, you know, but instead they fought for him. They terrorized the women involved. They harassed their families, like allegedly killed their pets. Like, I mean, some like real shady, like mafia type stuff. And
that's fucked up.
You know, it's like, really? Like, are you kidding me right now? And then it's all like, well, please be nice to him. He's got a family now. Yeah, but you raped like 8 women. So
guess what? Sorry. All rapists have families. That doesn't make them less of a rapist. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I know. And it's like, what? You know, and then they try to say these women are lying. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but the document where they're talking about it has already been released, and it's already been leaked, you know, it's like, whatever. And so, you know, and I think somehow in some weird twisted way, they probably fear that now all of their involvement and all the crazy crap they were involved in, and why they still need to deny it, is because some of that shit would really ruin their tax-exempt status.
Oh yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if you sat there and said, well, we spent a lot of our tax-free dollars killing dogs and harassing women and telling other Scientologists to spit on them and hiring PIs to follow them. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, that's very religious.
Yeah, very Christ-like. Well, I can't even say Christ-like with Scientology.
Yeah, no, they don't do Christ. Right. That was part of the conversation I had the other day about the atheism, and I'm like, well, wouldn't that make Scientologists atheists? And then we went back and forth because obviously the definition of religion has kind of progressed over time. So they do believe that they're spiritual beings. They do believe that Scientology does, but like, yeah, there's no God. They don't believe in a God at all.
But this is me going down a rabbit trail real quick, but I know someone in the chat will know if we don't know. But is the definition of atheism, is it just believing in no God or in nothing else beyond us? You know what I mean?
I think that's more agnostic. So God, atheist is like, yeah, there's no God, like, and there's no supreme being, there's no higher power.
I see.
Other than, like, I think for an atheist, it's like you have to, what I understood from the conversation I had, you actually need some like real concrete proof Otherwise, it's a nothing for you. We're agnostic. I think if you're agnostic, you believe in the possibility of a higher power
Like
or a supreme being or something like that,
could or could not be
but
either way.
you don't have proof of it. It's just there could be. You can kind of see that as a possibility, something like that.
I see. That makes sense.
There was a comment from Jacob Harkey where I think he talked about the 501c3 and its protection.
I love how everyone's really in the comments tonight and in the chat. I appreciate you guys. I love this conversation and talking amongst yourselves too while we're rattling off here. But it's interesting, and y'all have taught me a lot tonight already, and we haven't even been on here but a few minutes. I'm learning tonight. I like it. I like it a lot.
I love it because the chat talks to us and they talk to each other because they know each other, which is I think amazing. And it's community.
Awesome. And that's what we need. That's a really hard thing after leaving a cult or like a high control institution or religion in any way.
Even a relationship.
Is that there's such a, like, even when it's toxic and abusive, when you leave that, you still miss having community or having, that sense of connection with people and that closeness with people. So it's nice to have a taste of that here without the toxicity of it all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally with that. It's true. It's support. Yeah. It's helpful.
Exactly. Speaking the same language. So Jacob says the tax-exempt status enables so much abuse. Organizations like the Church of Scientology can use that to avoid being investigated by authorities because prosecutors don't want to take on a church.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. That's true. Because that has happened. And it's because they get stuck a lot where they get stuck on that separation of church and state. So the Scientology can go, well, per our scriptures, we deal with this in a certain way that they don't even have to explain. They don't have to say anything about it. And then the courts get stuck. They're like, we can't.
Right. We don't want to.
Well, we can't do anything because we're not allowed to.
Religious toes.
Yeah, like Scientology comes up with this. They came up with this thing called religious arbitration. Believe me, I was raised in it since I was born, and I was raised by the Syriac since I was 3, and then I was in it for 17 years, like directly working. There is no arbitration. There is nothing. There's no policy on it. There's no nothing. And they came up with it. One of their lawyers did or something. And now it works. So they can keep getting cases thrown out to go into religious arbitration. And the courts get stuck. They're like, shit, we can't. Well, what do we do? We can't.
Well, it's not like the courts are really doing their due diligence before that anyway, if we're being honest about it. Because I feel always come back to this, but I've mentioned it 100 times, but I will never shut up about it because it pisses me the absolute off. Is the clergy pension and privilege that's in almost every state in the United States. And before y'all come for me in the comments, as people usually do, saying, well, no, like in my state, clergy are mandated reporters. Sure, but there's a clause in there. They're mandated reporters, but there's an exception. The state still recognizes an exception under this religious clergy code. Not every state, but most states. I have them listed here. Hang on, let me see if I can find where I put that.
Like Scientology actually marked all of their files, even like personnel related files. They marked them all priest-penitent privileged files for the exact reason that they can't be taken and used and forced to turn over. And I'll tell you what, the stuff that's in them, they'll use it any day, anytime. Like if they decide to do a hate site on me, let's just say, or go turn people against me, they'll pull stuff straight out of those files and just start spreading all my whatever's in there.
Right. But it's the same shit that they made you admit to under duress when it wasn't even true, but you wanted the psychological and physical abuse to stop. So you're willing to say anything. It's like a forced confession that they can just use later. It's really fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, I had made banners here earlier with all the states that
that do
here we go. Yes, so these are the states that recognize the clergy dependent privilege. So
I mean, Jesus, are there any there or not?
Exactly. And the ones that aren't listed here, I think there might be like maybe 4 or 5 that
Oh, like
don't have the.
Virginia's not.
And, you know what? Where I got this information from, I will go back and link it in the description if anyone's interested in reading it and, like, just citing where I got it from, but it lists out by state who, you know, who recognizes the clergy penitent privilege, who has it, who basically they're if you're mandated reporter, but they'll overlook that if you have this law in place. And so basically what that means, anybody in this position of a clergy person within a church or religious institution, say someone in one of their parishioners or someone in the church admits to them that they've abused a child, hurt somebody, killed somebody. It doesn't really matter if they've said anything to a clergy member under this religious umbrella, then that clergy member does not have to report the abuse to the legal authorities. So basically they can handle everything internally and there'll be no repercussions or accountability outside of what the church deems that they want to do about it.
That's exactly right. Yes, I'm glad you said that, because I was just thinking about, I was looking at that list and I was thinking about that, but that's exactly what it is that that Scientology uses all the time, is that they say that we take care of this within our organization. It's bullshit. Because
I don't know about this square in my face, guys. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, so I was like, maybe it's just a recording and no one else can see it.
No, there's several people in the chat that have told me about it, but there's no setting on here that's
I've never seen it before.
Me either. I've never had this pop up. So if y'all know how to get it off, I guess just let me know. I'm a millennial. I don't know shit. I don't know shit about this shit, guys. So let me stop my cam and then I'll turn it back on. Still there.
No, it's still there, but you know what? It's like picture framing your pretty face.
Guys,
how about that? Look. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how to get rid of that.
It moves around with you, so
I know
it's never.
It's the Scientologists. They're coming through my camera. They're tracking me. God help me.
They like to call them body pains. It's Xenu. He's coming. It's coming for you. He's trying to freeze you in an ice cube and throw you in a volcano.
You know what? At least I'd feel something. No, I'm just kidding. Technology has put Kendra in the box. You know what? Let's just make a joke about it. Who cares? Because I just went to my camera settings and there's nothing that's clicked that should be clicked. So I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on. Just pretend it's not here. I don't know how to block it.
Well, you know, okay. So like, look, since we're on the Danny Masterson bandwagon, and I'm sure you're going to have some more examples of this, but like, you know, they go, oh, okay, well, you know, that was one scenario. And it's like, no, because when I was in the Sea Org daycare, when I was like 6 or 7, not only was I sexually abused, but so were 4 of my friends. And then later on, one of them got raped again. And the dude who did it stayed and they kicked her out. She was like 16 years old, you know? And then later on, I hear, you know, from another girl who was kind of like raised in Scientology. Her name is Trish Conley. She's older now. She had a daughter. But when her daughter was at a daycare that was owned by a Scientologist, and her son apparently sexually abused several, if not all of the children in that daycare.
Are you kidding?
And then it came up and they did this whole weird twisted thing to get him the least amount of penalty. And they went after each mom to talk them into not pressing charges. Like Scientology got that involved in it. And that's my thing. I'm like, ugh. And I know that's the only one, because look at the whole thing that we just talked about right at the very beginning with Ruby Franke and
Jodi Hildebrandt.
Yeah. You know, it's like,
just ethically, I don't know how people can go to bed at night feeling perfectly comfortable with defending and taking up for abusers instead of the victims. Like, how do you feel good about yourself? No one cares.
Like I know it's like something has, like, yes, you can go, okay, good, they need to lose the tax-exempt status, but actually, I think not only that, but I think the court system, the legal system, needs to have some kind of power to, like, take a look at when someone goes, oh, I'm sorry, separation of church and state, they are allowed to go, let's dissect this and
Mhm.
make sure it doesn't involve a crime. And if it does, then they get the authority. You know what I mean? Like something needs to
Yeah.
be, I feel like something needs to be given to the American justice system in this regard as well. I don't know. You guys can agree with me or not, or I don't know. Maybe you guys have a better idea too. But yes, I know, taking care, getting rid of this, the 501c3 would take care of that particular organization. But if you go broader and you look at the trouble they have as soon as they get to court, maybe like our court systems need to be given a little more power to kind of dissect this a little bit and go, okay, no, these are crimes. And I'm sorry, that overrules, that like has a higher, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, I don't really understand the fear behind, like, taking on, granted, I'm not a lawyer. Have no freaking clue when it comes to prosecuting or taking on cases, but I don't, understand the fear behind necessarily taking on church cases when there's, like, the indisputable proof of abuse and things that are against the law. Like, why would religion play into whether a law was broken? If the law was broken, the law was broken. Like, for me, but that may be just, that might be my autism coming through, where it's just very, like, black and white thinking, but I'm like, right is right, wrong is wrong. Like, fight me outside of that. Like, why are you gonna argue for it? Or try to get them a lesser charge for it just because they're tied to a religious institution? And I've kind of always felt that way even when I was involved still in religion. It's just like, no one should be getting away with hurting people, especially under the name of a god or a higher power. Even if
Yes.
you believe like that god or higher power is all forgiving, I'm not all forgiving. Those people you're abusing,
Yeah.
that
Like,
doesn't erase the abuse and the trauma and the lifelong impact that has.
yeah. Like,
So,
yeah, maybe you clear your own conscience somehow, but yeah, what about what that person is now going to have to endure the rest of their existence? Like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. And I just don't think that when it comes to like crimes, especially towards children, but towards really anybody, I just don't think that the church should have, one over on the justice system. I think
No.
the justice system should be able to do, do
But
that.
how deeply religion plays into just the tapestry of America. It would be
Mhm.
almost, people don't, I think maybe in the legal system, they don't want to step on anyone's religious toes because they're also religious, whether it's the same religion or not. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like,
Different one.
they would they would have to also accept accountability for the shit going on within their own faith, their own
Mhm.
religion, and no one wants
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like I was just thinking, like I did a series of interviews, and I'm going to do another one probably at the end of this month, but with a lady named Karen. She was in the Jehovah's Witnesses for 35 years, and she finally woke up and got the hell out. But she talks about like it was funny. We actually did this interview where we started talking about like the financial aspect of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And somehow the whole thing flipped. And like right at the beginning of the conversation, the whole thing flipped. And we ended up talking about all of the like pedophilia and sex crimes stuff that had been going on in the Jehovah's Witnesses and the way they've been covering it up and just how much like they have, apparently there's an actual list of their pedophiles, known pedophiles,
Oh, yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
refusing to turn it over to like they've been ordered to turn it over and they're refusing to do that. And like,
Yeah, go
much
ahead.
like the Catholics, people fought against them for years and years. And now some of these cases are finally making their way through, like, but nowhere near the amount that like happened.
Yeah. I interviewed an ex-Jehovah's Witness a couple times. Mickey, I've had her on lives too. She's from New Zealand. But, we talked about that one time on a live, and she confirmed, like, yeah, there's like this underground secret, um, basically vault with all of this recorded, abuse and abuser. So anytime someone reports an abuse to the Jehovah's Witness, to like their bishops or whatever, because I think they have like 800 numbers you can call to report abuse as a member. So you do that, but all they do is log the information essentially. And then it all goes into this underground thing. I think it's in New York, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they have one of their main facilities.
But they don't have to turn it over. Or I think the government actually requested those documents, but they just didn't comply.
Yeah.
And the government was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's fine."
Yeah. Yeah, they have their own like
them.
Yeah, like they much like Scientology have their own justice system. So what they do is they have these forget what they call them, but you have to sit with like let's say a child says this man touched me inappropriately. This little child has to sit in the room with her abuser and 2 elders and has to explain what happened. And there has to be there's a 2 witness rule.
Witness rule. Yep.
Yeah. So she's saying it and he's going, no, I don't think so. Then she gets nothing happens. So all that information also gets recorded probably together with those phone calls. And I think that's how they have this whole list. But like you say, they won't turn it over.
And that was my issue when I was talking to Mickey about it. I'm like, what is the point of having records? Number one, those could be compromised some way, somehow. You don't know if they're going to be leaked. You don't know if the government's going to raid eventually. Like, you don't know. So why, like, logically, being like a Jehovah's Witness bishop or higher up, why would you want to keep records of that if you're not planning on doing anything with it? You're not enforcing corrective action with the offenders. You're not reporting it to the authorities. Why do you need a record of it? Why are you keeping that?
Well, if they're like Scientology, it's
to use
to use against them if you need to later on. Well, they won't say that. They say that, because they keep everything. Everything is recorded. Everything is in files in like 3 different forms of files, and everything's kept there. And it's supposed to be like your track of progress sort of, and like whatever. But like you say, why are you keeping that if it could come up? You don't want people to know about that. And it's because they can and they have used it against defectors.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I don't know.
Next level blackmailing.
And I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses do that, but I imagine it wouldn't surprise me if that's why they keep a record.
Yeah. That's good insight. That's a good point. I don't know. I don't think Mickey mentioned that specifically, but I think unless you're higher up, like when you were in the Sea Org and everything, like most people probably don't have visibility to that or understand. Well, no, everybody doesn't. Or why would they want to be part of an organization that when they knowingly do that? It's just very clever and conniving.
Yeah. It's kept. They're confidential. They literally say on every folder, confidential, peace penitent, privileged files. So only certain people get to know. And sometimes like it goes around, like, so like, for example, one girl was abused by her father, and not all of the information on it, but some of it made its way around. And so a whole bunch of different spots of the organization, even myself, got an inkling of what occurred. And it was horrible. It was disgusting because they were trying to position him in the organization that I work for. And I said, like, no, get him the fuck out of here. Like, absolutely not. And I was raised in there, so I didn't even know you could call the cops about things like that. I had absolutely no idea. Like, it never even occurred to me. And that we take care of everything. And also we've been told too that like anything government, government related is evil, but they're also run like by psychiatrists, which will just ruin the soul of the person. So like if you turn them in, not only are you putting the organization at risk, but you're actually like going to destroy that soul for like an eternity, kind of forever. So
you don't want that on your conscience.
Yeah, it's kind of twisted and all kinds of backwards, but but she tried to, otherwise, I guess the point is everything's very confidential. So you almost never know about this, but she was actually trying to press charges. And then I think he even actually turned himself in, and then things were getting jacked up with the case. Wow. I did a whole write-up for her on what I knew and got that to her lawyer. And then I don't know, because of the way the system works, it passed like the statute or something, and the whole thing fell apart. It was just awful. So now he's like still just out there,
Great.
like,
Great.
yeah,
As
because the statute, like, why is there even one?
Yeah, for real. For real. I mean, there shouldn't be a statute of limitations, in my opinion, for child
I
abuse,
agree.
especially. It wasn't that long ago that the statute of limitations for murder was, extended, I think, to forever. Like, there's no limit on that now, but it should. I just don't understand why it's not that way for other areas of abuse. So Mary Beth says there's also a lot of abuse and lack of accountability in Amish communities as well. Mary Beth, I've got to know, are you ex-Amish? Also, I'm just curious. I don't know if I've seen anyone pop up in our chats before that are
I know.
ex-Amish.
I've literally been trying to find somebody from that community because I have so many questions, and I know like some of them. I think it also depends on the Amish community, because I think some are worse than others. That was kind of my understanding. I mean,
Yeah.
but some are really bad. Like, on Cults of Consciousness, I listened to a bunch
What's
of
his
them.
name? Yeah. Edwin or
Yeah,
something?
and some of them are definitely worse than others. Like,
We
they're all bad, but
mingled
some of them are worse than others.
we mingled with some Amish communities and Mennonite communities growing up. Like when my parents were trying to decide which cult they wanted to join, there was a time when we spent some time with the Amish and Mennonites, but and then my parents took pieces of that lifestyle for our our Heinz 57 version of a cult. And, part of that was like the no electricity, no running water. Like we didn't have any of that growing up. So it's very like primitive. But I remember visiting Amish communities before, and you know how they'll have like the stands on the side of the road, or at least like in Missouri and Pennsylvania stuff, they'll have the stands on the side of the road where you can buy Amish goods. But I remember one time we went to one of those places, pulled off to get something, I don't know. And my mom asked the husband a question, like the Amish husband, and he like wouldn't answer her. He turned to my dad and would only talk to my dad. And I don't know if this is just like them specific, but my parents were just like so fascinated and wowed. Like they loved the fact like that the married man wouldn't talk to another woman that wasn't his wife, essentially. Like they thought it was just so respectful that he would only talk to another man. They were just like in love with the patriarchy of it all.
It's so weird though, because at the same time, it's almost like treating them like they're not even there. It's like, you don't exist.
Yeah.
We're going to just talk like,
well, that's how women are treated
the woman's
in general,
like, hey,
right?
I'm right here.
Yeah. No, you're not. I see right through you. But yeah, Mary Beth said her father's side is Mennonite, so that's super interesting. Um, and then, hey, Corn Freak.
What is the difference though between the Mennonites and the Amish? Like maybe, I don't think I
don't feel qualified to answer that.
Okay.
Since we have we have father side Mennonites in here, I'm afraid I'm going to say something wrong. But from my understanding, just by the way that we mingled, the Mennonites did have electricity. Like here, for example, the Mennonites, I knew that they also named their cow after me, one of their dairy cows, because I had a dairy cow farm. So now there was a cow out there named Kendra. Anyway, that aside, they had like a professional dairy cow business with like the milking barns and everything. And so everything was electricity ran, whereas the Amish didn't have that. But then also the Mennonites, we stopped associating with them because they didn't believe in even playing instruments, like no music in that way. And we all played, like we learned guitar from a young age. And so just acoustic guitar, like all we would play were Jesus tunes, like and maybe some bluegrass and like gospel songs, but like they wouldn't even want to hear a strum on a guitar. So they were like very weird about that. But yeah, so those are some of the differences. And then also the Mennonites drive cars, whereas the Amish we knew only did like the horse and buggy type things. So
I'm thinking, okay, so like I didn't know they were called Mennonites. So here they refer to them as the East German Baptists. And but they dress in the thing, those homemade dresses, long sleeves all the way down. They put the hair in the caps or bonnets. I don't remember that.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
mom wore that
that
too.
yeah, and so they have like they're very well covered. They're very self-sufficient in that, you know, they're like growing of their own food and all that kind of stuff, but they do drive cars. They do have cell phones. They have electricity, that kind of thing, but a lot of the rest of it's living off land, and then they sell it to us because they make amazing things, honestly, and grow
I mean,
amazing
they
things.
do. It's quality.
They really do. So they make, you know, they support themselves and they make money, you know, doing
Yeah.
that. But yeah, but they look very similar, but they are driving things. So that must be the
Maybe
same,
so. Hold on, we might have
possibly.
an answer over here. Let me read the comments. Hey, Kat, good to see you on here tonight. As I recall, Mennonites use electricity, or use electric, particularly from sun or wind, as well as drive cars, like from windmills and stuff. Yeah, that is familiar to me too. I think she's right about that.
Okay. I'm not sure.
We'll take
I
electricity
don't know.
as long as it's fueled from gods, you know, from a God-given source like air or sun or wind. It's funny. Yeah, very, very interesting. I think we got a little sidetracked, but good conversation because the Amish and Mennonites, someone else emailed me this week about Mennonites. So this is weird. This is twice in one week come up. What are y'all doing out here? What are the Mennonites out here doing?
Yeah. So I mean, but what do you think about like sort of saying like, yes, you could go after, you know, go to the IRS or do what you have to do, write to your Congress, whatever, on like maybe revoking certain organizations 501c3 when they're abusive, but or almost like first of all, I don't understand why the IRS has that power. Like, how weird is that? Like, oh, okay, you can be a church. No, you cannot. Say what? Oh, but at the same time, there's a separation of church and state. But the IRS is state. So what the hell are they doing saying who can and can't be churches? So that's the first thing. But then also, like, why, like, shouldn't the whole like judicial system be given some sort of power to dissect that a little bit and given the power to like supersede or override if it comes to
Right.
crimes?
So this is what I found during some research. Maybe there's someone in the
Okay.
chat that can provide a little bit more insight into it. But from what I found, this is what it says. Churches in the United States are automatically considered tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code without the need to apply for formal recognition from the IRS.
They do have to apply because I remember like the whole story about Scientology was they were being denied and they owed a lot of money in back taxes, and the IRS wasn't going to give it to them. So not only were they trying to, they were filing suits against the IRS themselves, but they went after apparently over 50 individual IRS agents and started filing suits against them
I
and just
saw
made a
that.
huge scene. Yeah. And so finally the IRS was like, oh my God, stop. And then they said, we'll cancel every suit if you give us our exemption. So the IRS has to.
Well, did
Like
they deny their initial tax exemption, or were they in danger of getting it revoked?
No, it was revoked. It had been.
Okay, yeah. So they
It had been
already
revoked and
had
they
it.
wanted it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't I think it's like, I don't know, but the government is just shady as fuck. Hopefully no people with suits don't come to my door, but I'm sure there's been much worse about
I know, right?
that's like I'm a tiny dot on a huge radar. But they're in the business of shady business. And it's like if they pulled the plug on one church and pulled revoked their exemption status, their tax exemption status because of abuse, would there be any churches left? Like, honestly?
Well, you know what? There would be churches, but they would have to pay taxes like the rest of us. And I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. Because you
No,
think
but
about it, right? If the government is money motivated, then they would do that because these churches pay no taxes on their buildings. They pay no taxes on any of the shit they do. So, like, the government's not making money on them. They're losing money, like lots of it. So I don't see the money motivation.
Well, maybe our personal taxes have to be higher if the churches are tax exempt, right? Then we wouldn't give to the churches either. It's like this big toxic loop. We wouldn't be paying tithes and offerings to all of these,
I don't know.
abusive pockets. I don't know. It's just fucked
I mean,
up.
am I off my rocker to think that it isn't that bad of an idea to have the churches pay taxes like the rest of us? I mean,
No, most of us want churches to pay taxes. I think I think they should 1,000%. I'm on board with that.
I mean,
It's just
their kids go to school that we
right.
need to pay taxes for. They drive on the roads that we need to pay
Yeah.
for. Like,
And the thing is, the churches have gotten just really clever about how they get through all the loopholes, because there are standards in the 501c3 that they have to meet. But like, I'm working on a story right now about Kenneth Copeland, and he's down in Texas, but he has like a freaking huge compound. He makes tons of money, but he only claims like a small portion of it. He lives in this absolute mansion with a runway, multiple jets, but it's all tax free because it's considered like the parishioners, like the clergyman's household. So that's like, there's a certain, like, you can't refer to it as his house. Like, all of the staff knows that they have to refer to it as what, like, the clergy household, or there's some particular wording that they have to use. So I think just all of these churches have just gotten real clever.
It's just crazy because, okay, so before we started the stream, I was talking to Kendra about this show that I'm watching on Netflix right now that it just started. I'm only just starting part 2 of a 3-part thing, and it's called Dancing for the Devil, 7M, and it's this 7M management company that gets people to be very successful dancers, but they get them involved in their connected church, owned and run by the same man. And then more and more, as they have success, they're kind of attributing it to this church. And then they start having private dinners. And then little by little, they're getting people to disconnect from their family and letting go of ties, including even literally changing physical appearances to let go of things that remind them of their past existence before this cult. And the same thing with that guy, like, he's got this big, lavish, crazy house. And then he's got other ones that he puts people up in that are super nice, but they're all part of this whole weird, twisted thing. So yeah, like you're saying, there's loopholes. But the dude is like, and his 2 kids that help run the whole thing are like super rich. And then they get these people rich. Oh, but they were talking about the money. So not only these people getting super rich, they pay their 20% management fee, which is fine, it's normal. But then they pay the 10% tithing fee to the church, same people. And then as they progress further, they get demanded and expected to pay higher tithing amounts. So I think in the end, if I, and I'm not all the way through it yet, but it sounded like they were almost turning over 50% of their income, like, to this dude, like this minister, pastor, whatever he calls himself. And the way these sermons are doing, and these points that they're highlighting in this Bible, they're putting a huge load of emphasis on things, and that's how they're getting them to disconnect from their families. It's wild. And it's really funny because a lot of the comments were passing by, like, on the screen, because they're just showing the social media platforms, which is where a lot of these dancers exist. And one of them, even, like, one of the comments that just popped up and I happened to catch it, and it said, "It's Scientology with dancing." I was like, holy hell. I saw it.
Was that you, Jenny? Jenny, did you actually leave that comment?
I have to stay out of there because I cannot dance. Not even when I'm drunk.
When I don't get drunk anymore because I can't handle, like, I break out every time I drink, and that's just not something I'm willing to deal with. Like, my skin breaks out. But back when, I definitely thought I could dance when I drank. Thank God I'm not out here embarrassing myself like that. I'm finding new ways to embarrass myself now that I'm in my mid-30s.
Excellent.
AT Chick, yes, I found Kenneth's Westerns and his singing from his early days. Guys, I have this theory, and I've talked to Dustin about it multiple times, But one common thread I've noticed with cult leaders or like charismatic leaders in these churches is that, I swear to God, I'm going to start a spreadsheet, but like 99% of them started out something in the entertainment industry and failed at it, whether it's singing, dancing, producing music. There's something.
Yes.
Every single one. I
You
swear to God,
remember
if you dig far enough,
yeah.
every single one, like even with Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard wasn't he was a like fiction writer. Like it's something that puts people in a position, like the spotlight. And when they fail at being in the spotlight for just normal reasons, because the entertainment industry or writing is like very difficult and competitive, when they fail at that, then they're like, guess I'm starting a church. Because they can make money, be in the spotlight, be, appreciated and revered and, make bank. But it's just an interesting pattern that I've noticed.
And like maybe this weird thing of like trying to separate themselves from it and be this kind of like higher power because they couldn't get that there, Like, you remember that young actor guy who failed as an actor who then created that small cult and then like was trying to get them all to kill themselves? Like, God, I can't remember the name of it. They ended up making a show about it, and then obviously a bunch of them got talked down and so he didn't succeed.
I'm like, which one? Because there's several. I know there's several big cult leaders that tried to do that with like getting people to themselves.
This one was small. He didn't get as many followers probably as some of these other ones that actually succeeded. Yeah. I mean, like, look at that whole Jonestown thing,
Yeah, I just did a video on the top 5 deadliest cults in history. And there's some on there that like Jonestown is on there, but there's a couple in there that I just didn't even know about. And I do cult shit every day. But it's pretty amazing, like how people can just can dedicate so much time and play the long game on manipulation and just this weird sick power play.
Yeah. And so I watched that video of yours, and it's like jaw-dropping shit. Yeah. Seriously. But I keep thinking that like, like these things go on for a long time, and that people would in like normal situations would look and go, there's something not quite right about what I'm seeing, even though they can't see it all. But they're not going to look further because they go, oh, it's a church or it's a religion, or they're just following their higher belief. So I think it makes people automatically put on some blinders for a while. And I think that's why a lot of these organizations get away with it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like,
no, I think you're right. And like you said, with this other dancing one, it's like they will, they're kind of like tag teaming it. They're helping them rise to fame and get popular on social media, whatever. They're helping them achieve their dreams in some way, but while at the same time indoctrinating them with this other belief set. So then they correlate the success with the belief. And so then they don't want to let go of the belief, because that would mean losing their success, because that's the only reason they have success in the first place in their minds, because they've been brainwashed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was what one of the people said in there. They said, because then you start to believe that happened because of your faith in God and that organization, that church. And then, so they get scared about it. Oof. It's crazy.
It's pretty nuts. AT said the Kenneth Copeland's Third Western was supposed to be in Las Vegas, where I live, but it never came to fruition. Well, guess he should have prayed harder about that. But yeah, Kenneth Copeland does the whole prosperity gospel, where it's about like someone put it up here. Oh, it was Kat also that said any church that demands tithing shouldn't be nonprofit. And that's what Copeland's church is. It's the prosperity gospel, where it's like mandatory to tithe, because your success here on earth, your abundance here on earth, is tied directly to how much you give the church. And then he started this whole belief that it's also in heaven. What you give here, there's also basically a currency in heaven as well. But anyway, I'm doing a video with Dustin on that, and we're doing that this week. So we'll be more in depth with it then. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. But good people get sucked into it because they want to go to heaven. They want to do the right thing. And when someone who's obviously rich and wealthy and telling you, well, the only reason I got to be in this position of wealth and, you know, have all of these jets and Kenneth Copeland, all that surgery on his face is because he's doing the right thing by God, and that's giving.
Yeah. The Grant Cardones of the world.
Like verses about, going, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. He's just, cherry picking per usual. Hold on. Is this the documentary you were talking about, Jenny?
Yeah. So it's called Dancing with the Devil, or like /7M or something. But the whole beginning starts with 7M because that's how 7M is the management agency is how they get them into this. It's like called Shinkinia or something weird like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, they follow the Bible, so it's got to be some sort of like offshoot of Christianity.
Gotcha. I just see 7 million and I'm like, 7 million is arranged marriages too. What?
I don't know. 7 is management. I mean, I don't know who knows? Maybe it's million.
So true. Deja Blue says tithing is basically paying for services under the table, also known as tax dodging, but because churches don't pay taxes, it's illegal. Mm-hmm. Full circle, baby.
I know, just like they can abuse people and say we're dealing this, with our religious methods.
Yeah. Hey Darky, how's it going? Good to see some good friendly faces on here. Yeah, go back to the beginning if you can, because we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about a lot of shit, been all over the place. But Corn Freak said he researched Jehovah's Witness to understand my childhood, which led to Mormonism, which led me to deconstruct my own beliefs. I think it's that way for a lot of us. It didn't start out with deconstructing our own beliefs specifically. It's like, oh wait, this thing's kind of fucked up. This thing's kind of a cult, or it's a little brainwashy. And then you start seeing like the parallels between that religion and then your religion. It's like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Oh shit, this is gonna hurt like a bitch. Let me go ahead and find a therapist.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Oh, man. Yeah, what else, Jenny? Have we talked about everybody we wanted to talk about? Probably not.
Probably not, but we can always do a part 2 and 3.
And 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I mean, we could honestly do it on each person if we or one on the Catholic Church, one on the Amish, you know what I mean? Oh, I forgot to mention this. Let me pop this up here.
I'd be down for that.
I started a Google form, which I put in the description of this video, but I'm going to start doing listener episodes where if you send in your own stories, it doesn't have to be about a cult if you weren't raised religious or in a cult, but if it's true crimey, paranormal, anything like that, I want to start doing just fun reading episodes of your guys' stories. But also if you want to recommend stories you want me to cover, or you do want to send in your own experience, just that same form. It's pretty easy to fill out. You can remain anonymous if you choose. So yeah, if there's something that you guys want to send
I'm telling you, Kendra, I think we have formed our own anti-cult cult, because literally I've been doing that. So I've done 2 interviews with 2 of the listeners, and 3 now, and I'm about to do another 2.
We just call it trauma dumping, baby. It's healing.
Keep emailing me, email her. Oh no, she's got a form. She's more organized than me. I'm kind of like she's a millennial, so she can still figure out more than me.
Well, the form helps me organize
everything.
Get better, because people have normally I've just been telling people to send me emails, but then they'll get lost in the everything, and I don't mean them to do that. I rarely check messages on Instagram. It's very overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah.
So this is just a better way to keep track for you guys and for me as well.
It's good. I think it's really good. And you have that website. That's awesome. And by the way, she has a really great little store too. That cup I showed, if for any of the people on my channel who saw the live I did with Sterling and Matt, and I held up my cup that said, "Live, laugh, leave a cult." Yeah, several times. And so I put the link to your shop in there.
I have mine right here. I have 2 of them. One says, "With all due disrespect," because that's one of the things that I say in a lot of my videos. And then the other one says live, laugh, leave a cult. But I have shirts, crop tops, hats, all kinds of cute little shit. So yeah,
Hoodies,
if y'all want to, it's like
fun
the best
stuff.
way to support creators like Jenny and myself, or Cults to Consciousness. Any creator out here is merch is usually the way to do it. And it's custom made. Like, we put a lot of time into our creations and designs. They're not just stolen.
You want to know how
what I mean?
great I am with this stuff? I got
Tell me, girl.
monetized, and then I did some change that YouTube told me to do, and I got myself unmonetized. And now they said I don't qualify for it. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Girl, get with me afterwards or something. We got to figure that out. I mean,
I know. I was like so frustrated. I was like, you know what? Like anyways, yes, I'll get with you afterwards. I couldn't believe it. They're like, you don't qualify. I said, but I did until you told me to do something. I said, and my content is exactly the same.
What do they want from us, man? But we also talk about we also talk a lot of sensitive topics on both of our channels, and that can be the sensitivity to that. YouTube picks up a lot of times and will like demonetize things. Just tricky. It's tricky. Of course, I had to throw this up here. A lot of you guys from Patreon, I've seen in the comments tonight. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all being here. Huge shout out to all of you guys. Sadia, my girl. She's one of my Patreon people. Phenomenal. Just so supportive. We have fun over in Patreon. I do all of like as you do, Jenny. It's like writing, research, writing, editing, filming. Everything is solo, so it takes me so long to do.
Yeah, it does. Video. I do editing. So, it just takes forever.
But I'm getting better about putting Patreon specific things over there. And so every time I record a video now, I'll do a little extra segment just for Patreon. So, because everyone over there deserves to have exclusive stuff, because y'all are just amazing.
I don't even know how to do Kara, Patreon.
Kara. I haven't seen you in here yet. It's good to see you pop up, Kara. Yeah. I like to call her Mama Kara. She's been here since I started talking about my story pretty much a year ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Anything else, Jenny, for you? What do you want to say? What do you want people to do besides go? If you're my person, please go to Jenny's page and subscribe to Jenny's.
Yes, please.
Cults and Atheists. It'd be great. Help her channel grow. Plus, you can get more interviews. She pretty much does more interviews now with survivor stories than I do, because I've been just doing a lot more just writing and researching independent videos like that. So yeah, you can get a little of both worlds. That's why we do that.
Absolutely. And everyone go over and subscribe to her. I'll put your link back up. I had it in my community tab, and I'll go on my page of this live. I'll go ahead and plug it in and pin it in the comments. And otherwise, I would love it for people to watch any of my other videos that I have up. And we have more coming. I got to get on the ball with some of the editing, because I'm just not that fast at it. But
it's a long process every time. Trust.
No, it's coming. And then Russell and I will go live on Wednesday as well.
Awesome. Well, Kraken Studio has been in here talking to you this whole time, but I don't know if you've had the tab open.
There's so many, and they go by so fast sometimes. I'm just like, that's another thing. I'm like, usually my cousin takes care of the chat, because I start going all over, and then I click things and hide things and unclick things and then star things. And then I mess everything up. So I just let him do that.
So Kraken says, someone's got to delegate.
She said, I'm finished. And I did an interview with her. So she interviewed me. She said, I'm finishing your video now. Thank you, Kraken. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And John Van Geese was one of the later interviews I did. He was in here. And he and I are going to do another couple. We're going to talk about Buddhism, and L. Ron Hubbard saying he was the reincarnation of Buddha. And we are going to do one on the subject of Egypt, the Pharaoh, Moses, all that. And then the way L. Ron Hubbard talks about it, which does involve ray guns. So stay tuned for those.
Oh, God. They always think that they're the reincarnation of Jesus, Moses. The one I did, he thought he was the Thor's descendant. Like, how many reincarnations are there, guys? Y'all can't all be reincarnations at the same time in the same generation. Get together. Y'all got a
I
court.
know. It's like, come on.
God. Well, thank y'all
Yeah,
so
but we
much
break
for
it
being
all down, so it'll
on.
be interesting.
Yeah, for real. Well, we'll talk. We'll talk, and I'll watch it too.
Yeah.
But y'all have
Let's
a
do
great
it.
night. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Send your suggestions.
Thank you,
in.
everybody.
We love y'all. We'll see y'all later.
Love you.
Live, laugh, leave a cult.
Yeah, dude.